All right, can I get a motion to accept tonight's meeting agenda as proposed? Motion by Mrs. Wood, second by Mrs. Nickerson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Is this a strategy so I can turn on my thing here?
Yeah,
Oh, you got the,
you got the
yeah,
profile.
you did one. It's unanimous, Pearl. Yeah,
Nice,
push.
nice, everybody, nice
Do you have a
job.
paper clip for Tim?
Good strategy, I like it. I like it, okay.
I will dispense with asking Pearl if we have blue cards, because that would be a miracle if no one's here. So we move to special presentations, and we have Mrs. Kristen Enright, Paul B. Moore, a really long title.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Hold on, I got to see if I remember. Oh, it's good, it's up there. Executive
Yeah.
Principal, Director of Counseling and Pathways to Success.
Okay. I just have to check those. Pearl, is it synced? Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon. Today's presentation is going to be about the College and Career Readiness Committee and an update based on Paul B. Moore and where we're heading. So to start off with, Chris Salori presented at the College and Career Readiness Committee along with Jen O'Malley about this concept of a senior portfolio. And it generated a lot of questions, both at the committee as well as from our PB Moore staff when it was presented to them. Some of the questions we asked ourselves were, how can we best use advisement to support the attributes and competencies of a Central Square learner? Basically because the way the portfolio was generated, it was because we wanted to figure out how could we truly assess that our students are graduating with these attributes? How can we guarantee that we're giving them as many opportunities as possible to obtain the attributes and competencies? We also asked questions like, how can departments contribute to the portfolio? How can we incorporate student choice? So there were a lot of questions kind of roaming around with this concept and idea. So it started out with an idea that he took from a school kind of up north, modified it, and then we brought it to the committee as well as to Paul B. Moore, and now it's just this kind of ongoing document that we're working on and asking questions about. There's really three committees that work on this. The first one is the College and Career Readiness Committee. So their aspect was to talk about these four attributes. And again, I'm just going to refer to the Paul B. Moore aspect of it. The first one, effective communicator and collaborator. In the pictures, you'll just notice this is just one way club, the robotics club, is using their communication and collaboration skills. Then we have the innovative and critical thinker. Really come out in a good spot. Here we go. The innovative and critical thinker, that's an example of an engineer design process where students were given tasks with different parameters and they had to attempt to solve it. We have the emotional intelligence category, which the Health and Wellness Fair was a huge aspect to that, and kudos to Misty Bianco for all of her efforts in organizing that as well as the committee. And then we have the contributing citizen. And just, there's one piece of that. Under contributing citizen, it's our students fiscally informed and responsible. So picture up there is an example of Ms. Neal's consumer and finance class that went out to Raymore Chevy, I believe Mrs. House's daughter presented to them, and really talking about what it's like to have a loan, to purchase a car, to have a lease. And again, that all represents students gaining awareness of being fiscally responsible, as well as that course. So these are just some different ways that we're already working in the attributes. In the committee, we also talked about these career clusters. And it was presented that there's these 16 clusters, and we have a lot of organizations and businesses that are working with us. Well, how can we define them if they were to fall under these different categories? The categories also tie with Zello, which is the program that all 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders have been exposed to this year. It helps identify what categories the students might be interested in, but we're really trying to align everything. So our business partners with those categories, we are working with the partners in education to say, okay, which businesses and organizations are we kind of lacking in what area? Like is health science an area that we're lacking partnerships with? And we are asking them to help us find businesses in that area to come present to our students. We talked about work-based learning opportunities, which really plays a role into graduation. because we have all these different pathways for student graduation, and one of them is obtaining the CDOS or the work-based learning hours. And so in order to obtain that, we have a little bit of different pathways. We have guest speakers, we have job shadows, field trips, internships, mentoring programs. If you move, actually, let me go back real quick. We really spent some time in the committee defining those. What does it mean to be have a job shadow, a mentor, an internship? If we're talking back to that portfolio, what does that look like for a student? We build 2 internship classes for next year. One is going to have a good chunk of our special education students in it who need the work-based learning hours, who also might need transportation and a coach to go along with them. And then another internship course where students who can drive to their site or have a little bit more flexibility in their schedule. So those 2 classes will really build on students who need work-based learning hours or just want exposure to a career.
If I could just jump in there, just so the board knows, a big difference between getting a CDOS credential and getting a CDOS diploma is as they move on, there are jobs that require a diploma from high school. Doesn't necessarily mean Regents diploma or Advanced Regents diploma, but they will qualify to be able to go into programs after high school and jobs with the CDOS diploma. And that only comes out as a result of the work-based learning program.
Right, so following the CDOS pathway versus a credential is going to be more important because they can have that local diploma and say that they have a diploma, not a credential. So moving forward, the other committee that we worked on is the teachers, the staff, the teaching assistants, and our curriculum and instruction. One thing that we did that I kind of brought up last presentation from Paul B. Moore is we reorganized our course description booklet. Well, within that, we embedded the attributes of a Central Square learner. So all this year, that's what we're talking about, is how do we focus on these attributes? What classes are really, what kind of attributes are they focusing on? So if you look here, we have ceramics, one of our art classes, and they said that their 3 biggest attributes is solving problems, innovative and creative, grit and perseverance. And then an English class is saying use the resources to construct knowledge, adaptability, and being productive. So you can kind of look at each one of those classes and really hope that by the end of a student graduating after 4 years, they've had a class that's hit all of those attributes, so a student has had exposure to each one of those categories.
Well, while you're waiting for that to catch up, I'll just tell you, having gone through the old course catalog with my oldest son and now this one, what a difference. It is night and day. So thanks to everyone that put in the work on that.
Yeah, there's a huge group involved in that, that's for sure. Thank you. Yeah, and it's really not just, words on a paper. When we talk about identify 3 attributes that are in your course, next year we're moving on to, okay, how are you assessing that, right? If those are your attributes, how can you assess it? And that's what's going to be up next here. In one of our PD, we now meet as a staff. They were meeting 3 days a month after school, so we changed it to 4 this year. One of those days is department coordinator meetings. The other one is just department meetings. Another one is staff, traditional staff meetings, and then PD meetings. So once a month, we meet outside of the half days, outside of the superintendent's conference days. We just focus on professional development and really talking about how are we going to put these strategies and tools together? What are we noticing in our observations? And one thing is Harvey Silver's Tools for a Thoughtful Classroom. He has a strategy called the C list. And the C list is a way to say, okay, and they start everything with the letter C. So how am I going to take this assignment and assess whether or not the student has completed it? Or am I going to grade on content or competence or creativity or cooperation? And the C list says that you can have all these attributes, right? Because we kind of changed it to attributes instead of the C list. But you can take all these items, and by the end of the year, or end of a long project, or end of an assignment, there are certain ones you can assess. And then you provide the student with questions based on that topic. So if we were to take that and relate it to our attributes, should I point at this? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we start with contributing citizen, I just picked 2 of the words, informed and culturally aware. We did it for every single subtitle in the 4 attributes. So for contributing citizen, if you were assessing if the students are informed, what kind of questions can you ask while you're grading or while they're doing a self-assessment? One of the questions is does the student gather information from diverse, unbiased, and reliable sources before coming to a conclusion? Or for culturally aware, did the student use culturally appropriate and respectful language? So the teachers came up with all these questions. The administrators didn't. We said, how would you assess students? What type of questions would you ask to make sure that these attributes are being covered? Again, we did the same thing for effective communicator and collaborator. So these are some questions we came up with. And again, the teachers can use these as reflections for students. We can create some type of product at the end of the year to say these are answers that kids could, we could actually say yes to. A student was organized and their thoughts were clear, and here's an example of how. Or, does the student take initiative? Can a student weigh the pros and cons? And then they should have a sample of them doing that in their class. Show it with a writing sample or a presentation or rubrics. There's the questions we came up with for emotionally intelligent. Again, there's a lot more subwords, those are just a few. And I think being a member of the Career and College Readiness Committee, they would like to know that we didn't just take this list you gave us, put it on posters, put it up in the classroom. We really thought about it and said, yeah, we want our kids not just walking the stage because they got 22 credits and they, pass the prior regencies. We want to know that they can say yes to most of these questions. And that they understand their areas of strength and their needs for improvement. Okay, so we talked about, we had this portfolio idea, but is that really going to encompass what we want in order for students to achieve these attributes? So one new concept we came up with was, what if we highlighted 2 of the 4 attributes each year? So by the time a student graduated, they hit this topic twice. So this is just a hypothetical. If we were to choose emotionally intelligent and contributing citizen next year, which we're continuing to talk about this month, we had the staff talk about, okay, what does it mean to be a contributing citizen, right? If we were to pick that one. And what can we do as a school to provide students with these opportunities? So if we decided on a half day, we're going to use our morning schedule and everyone's going to stop, or during advisement, we're all going to stop and we're all going to write a letter to a veteran, or we're all going to do something, do volunteer work, we're going to get something organized. These are ways that we're going to guarantee that, okay, we have offered students opportunities to be a contributing citizen, and that was our highlight, that's our focus this school year, next year. And we talked about how can we maximize our schedule to accomplish this, because we have to take into consideration half-day BOCES, AM, PM, how are we including all students and making sure that they get these attributes, not just the ones that are here all day. And when you think about it also, what are the opportunities the students who are at BOCES have? And let's take that into consideration, that they might not be missing out. They might be getting work-based learning experience that they wouldn't be getting here. So the last subgroup was the Career Center and how they're helping us with our attributes. So this is an example of the field trips that the Career Center has put on this year. Debbie O'Meara has an extensive list of attendance for all of them, who's gone, grade levels, which is important to us to kind of look through and make sure that we're hitting population. If we're not hitting a certain population, how can we maximize on that? And that's kind of what we realized. Mr. Calabufa brought up the phys ed, and that was a possible factor. So that was fixed. And then also the panel discussions, that was also fixed by having Partners in Education be a part with us as well. Field trips also happen in the classroom. This is one example of a recent one in a business class, the sports marketing. They went to the Syracuse Mets game and they had all sorts of opportunities, personal tours, got to really talk about broadcasting and advertising and promotions. And I think they were one of the few groups there, so they got picked for like everything.
One student helped Tebow with the swing tip.
They had to throw out their first pitch, they got to do a whole lot. So it was not only fun and entertaining, but they really gave them a lot of one-on-one attention, and that was appreciated. So there's classroom field trips and Career Center field trips. Then we have the virtual field trips and the career panel discussions. Again, the panel discussions are put on through the Career Center. They're during advisement, so the majority of students are able to have advisement in their schedule, so they're able to sign up and attend when it hits a career cluster that interests them. And we're really making sure that all 16 career clusters are being represented. That was from the DEC and Oswego Conservation. And then here's the One of the panel discussions was forensic blood splatter analysis, which was a hot topic. We had to hold that in the lecture hall. That had a very high interest, both female and male populations. So there's the picture of the crew that attended that. And then Debbie O'Meara puts together these posters up here just to get high peaks of interest and put QR codes together. And now that we have our boards too, a lot of advertising going on so that students are aware of what's going on in the Career Center. And then when it's in here next year, students will really have a good idea of what's going on. It will help with communication. Last but not least, we have job shadows. I think this is an area that we really need to work on. And because we have 2 business teachers that are certified as work-based learning coordinators for next year's course, I believe that'll improve and increase as well. Again, a student's schedule has to be a little flexible to accommodate that, but I could definitely see that area growing in the future. And just the last slide here is just to show that, success, what people think it looks like, right? And then we come together and we start talking about, we might not have this portfolio, the checklist of this, this, and this, because everyone's got these different pathways and different ideas and concepts. So what it really might look like is that, but it still leads to success. Any questions?
I'll start.
Sure.
I think this is fantastic. I really do. And how it's going to get integrated into the day-to-day education, what everybody in this building is doing and focusing on, because it's really, it's the outside, right? It's really what they're going to do once they get outside. And to me, the more exposure that you can have and the more opportunity and the better, because what you do in the classroom, how is it going to link to your future? How is it going to? And this is, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. And I would say, as maybe something on the future as we talk about, is how does BOCES engage in to reaching our goals? Is what does, they should probably be integrated. Don't panic. But really, they should be on board with this, and they should be able to at least continue it and talk about it, because you really don't want them to leave here and then have things that aren't connected to what, because I see it being as a big one-on-one. This is about you, okay? This is about what you're going to do for your 4 years here, and here's the attributes. It's really the folders of measurement of what, how are you doing? We planned on you doing this. Have you done this? We wanted you to volunteer this year. We wanted you to do this, but we're 3/4 of the way through the year, and you really haven't. So we got to get you into this, and it might be a whole reason, but to me, it really, you're not just going into a classroom, sitting in a seat. This is really engaging and talking and seeing what your success is going to look like. I think to me, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I do think the BOCES principles that I've worked with, we've really talked about, because they provide us a lot of different data, but it's different depending on who the principal is. And we really talked about coming up with a systemic sheet of what you're providing us with. How many hours did they gain? What are they doing? One principal writes a newsletter to us every week. Someone else will send us something different. So they were on board. As soon as I mentioned it to them, they were like, yeah, we can do that for you. And next year we're assigning each counselor to a specific alternative ed program. So they're not trying to reach out like one's reaching out because their student's there and another student's here. So on our end, it would help them with communication, I'm sure. Instead of having 5 counselors contact one principal, this is the counselor that's contacting this program. CTE will look a little different because there's so many students there for the half-day programs, but I think that'll help with communication. So on both ends, we can improve there.
Yeah, so they're just not getting on a bus and leaving for 4 hours a day, and then,
Yeah.
truly, are you, what are you doing? Just like you asking the questions, okay, you're saying this, but truly, how can you evaluate, and how is your lesson going to indicate that you're hitting these marks? And,
Right.
You're asking the right questions, and they're probably doing it, but to me, if they can solidify and plan it, I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and I think they'll work with us. If I told them we're focusing on contributing citizen, I'd like to see the examples you did this month with, they'll do it. I mean, they're very open, so
Yeah,
they're happy with that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, so the list of job shadows is pretty small.
It is,
So
yeah.
is that plan on growing then and then just start
Absolutely.
off?
I think that's the
junior?
one area, just by
Yeah.
looking at it, it looks like, oh, this is a tiny list. Now, there's not a class that focuses on job shadows. So really, if I had a task for the Career Center next year, it's
Right.
the Career Center working with the work-based learning coordinators. Because really, a job shadow entails a lot more than just finding a business and having a kid go meet with that teacher. The coordinator should be doing some research about the adult they're going with, going to the business first and assessing what it's like. You know what I mean? There's a lot of
Right.
pieces to it. But I think the College and Career Committee really helped us identify a whole larger population of businesses that we can reach out to. Because right now, when you look at the list, it's teachers, family members, and, you know, people we have really close connections with. So that's an area that could improve.
Well, and I know there are two that we had sent students to, Red Brick,
Yeah.
the music studio, but then also costs, they've done it for a handful of our students too.
Yeah,
the physical
and if
therapy.
Debbie wasn't directly related to it, she might not have added it to this,
Correct.
because I asked her once that she helps affiliate with. But I think there's lots of different people that try to make connections and send a kid to that we might not necessarily.
But that's gonna be the key part. So if a kid is saying, you know, I wanna be in medicine, physical therapy,
Yeah.
yes, we have costs, we have these other ones as well, you know, so it's built right out, because that career center's, it's already amazing what she's done to it. It's gonna be great to even have an interactive board. Joshua, and click on it, and then have all of those.
Right, select, and then we can get to, you know what I mean, just a lot more student feedback of what do you want. And I think the internship class is really gonna help too, but the job shadow typically comes first, right? Because you wanna expose them to something before they get to an internship.
What year or time of the year currently do they most often do the job shadow, and what, do you see it changing in the future? Or?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, usually the fall, everyone doesn't know too much of what's going on, where to go, where to get the information. So Debbie starts pushing stuff out. Typically around January, we saw a spike, and then again, at the beginning of April, we had a majority of students, but you can kind of tell from the marking period changes, where all of a sudden is, so the beginning of a new marking period. Do you know what I mean? So that they know, like, okay, my grade's set. But I think the biggest piece was just knowing it was there. Like when we're just singing over the announcements, we're posting on the website, really letting the students who might have a study hall or something saying, we got something more for you. So like I said, if it's in the cafeteria, I don't think it's gonna be a time of the year more than letting kids know what we can offer them. So part of like the beginning of the year when we meet with each class, we can talk to them. Hey, here's the opportunities we have. Because Debbie did that, but we're located right in the cafeteria. You know, I could see her walking around and handing out information sheets or, you know, QR codes. That's gonna push it. But I wouldn't say those are the two. January and the beginning of April, we saw some spikes.
Okay. And then one question related to your presentation, one follow, but so when you were talking about kind of asking whether it's, I think it's both, maybe it was the students and teachers, you know, are they learning these competencies that we're talking about? Where are we as far as like post-grad surveys? I don't know where that conversation ended off, or if there's any work being done, because as you were talking about that, my thought was, man, wouldn't it be great to know, like, this is the benchmark we want, the kids that graduated a few years ago, so that we can then see the change that all of this is having in the future. So I don't know, is there any discussion on that yet?
City BOCES has information, but Chris said that it kind of drops off after, 3 years that the kids are gone. They're no longer sending back that information. It's hard to get a hold of them if they've moved out of the area, but that's something that I definitely do want to be able to do, and then get it into Forecast 5 so we can chart that.
So cities, you're saying that
City has done it, yeah.
currently surveys all students?
What Chris Todd had said, he said they have limited information about the graduates in Oswego County from each of the schools that he can get me, but then he said it drops off after like 3 years.
So, but it sounds like you're talking a pretty generic survey, because they're not asking any questions specific to our district.
No.
They're not asking,
No, like
how do
what
you
college,
feel
did
psychosport
you-
prepared you
did
to
you
be a
finish
contributor?
Correct, 2 or 4 year program.
Yeah. And we have not done anything with that yet,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, so that,
I know there's
Years
different
ago,
programs.
They did do a
and-
survey, but I think it was way back when Walt was here, we did surveys. Maureen, do you remember that? Yep.
Yeah, we absolutely looking to do that.
Yeah, Yeah, we definitely talked about it. I know Mr. Petrella, one of our counselors, had showed me a program that someone puts together, and I'm like, it's hard with cell phone numbers and address changes and trying to keep their emails, because students are giving us like their school email.
Right.
It doesn't help us, because you're not gonna have the cssd.org app, what's your new one, and then if they go to college, they might have a different one with their school email, so. But I'm still getting some from Liverpool, so someone has a system that's working.
If we got their parents, where we can contact their parents, it's pretty much gonna stay the same. Email.
And then unrelated, which is, can you just give the, and I don't know who all's involved, but the board an update on, obviously there were some, trials and tribulations with the, I don't know what the official term was, but the STAR program, the ASVAB, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Just kind of make sure the board is aware of where it stands and what we're looking to do.
Yeah, so I can speak to the ASVAB, the first ASVAB test that we gave to 10th graders. There was a network issue, and it wasn't on our end, it was on their testing end. Then we gave it again, and about 35 students, I believe it was, were able to take it. Again, same thing, all the kids logging on at once, there was a problem, not with our system. So the students that took it, we got the results back. We met with them up in the large lecture hall. All the counselors were present, as well as a representative from ASVAB, Nathaniel Van Dusen. He was the one that kind of set up the test with me. So he said we give this presentation afterwards for the kids to understand the results, and they go through a worksheet. And based on the feedback from the counselors and myself, and Mr. Savori was there, they said it was the same presentation that was given about 20 years ago. The exact same poster, as a poster, and walked through the kids, and we really didn't see a whole lot of information when we were comparing it to something like Zello that the students had already completed. And after going through that, I asked the counselors, is this useful information? And it's a lot of just testing scores. Here's where you stand with ELA or reading comprehension. Here's where you stand with mathematical skills base. And the kids really know that about themselves after taking a Regents or a test. So it was a little too test driven and not personal enough.
So we switched more for career exploration to Zello. But regarding the military pathway, it's been great for our students every month that have been taking the ASVAB.
I keep telling Tom, like every so often there's a handful of 5 kids, and then Debbie puts out to all the counselors, is there anyone else that might be interested? And then they connect with the students. So we're still having, I mean, Nathan's still happy because he's still coming in every month and offering the ASVAB for the kids that are interested in it. We've actually had quite a few 9th grade parents come in to say, can we take it yet? And we're kind of asking the right questions. So you can definitely tell there's pockets of students that are interested in it. But to do it as a whole large group, based on the information we got back, it just weren't impressed.
And then the STAR program, so it's 2 kind of separate questions.
Yep. Oh yeah, the STAR program. So Jen O'Malley is kind of took over controlling of finding people. So what happened was at first we were promoting it, but no one was really attending. So I think it was more of a tap on the shoulder and inviting students, and she got with the counselors and said who would be a good group of kids, and she explained it really more to them. So I think when you just advertise a new club in the announcements, but you don't have people tapping kids on the shoulder and explaining it to them, we didn't get the population we wanted. So once she got involved and she got in there, and Jen knows the students really well, I think she got a good population. They met once a month. Not sure when the last time they've met here, because you usually see them like walking in the hallways and they're doing different formations, and just kind of got to watch what it is they do, how they treat the kids. So the STAR program leader, I can't remember his name, but he kind of come in and he ran it. So it wasn't an expectation of Jen to run the program. He came in and did it and said, here's what we're going to be working on, and she was present, and she worked with the kids, but for the most part enrollment didn't drop. So whatever popular, I don't want to guess, it was like a dozen kids. Out of the dozen, I asked, are kids dropping out? Are they not interested? They loved it. The ones that are involved really liked it. And the population that we chose, there were kids that needed to buy into school and have something after school and really participate and find a little something that was for them. So I think it worked out. I would definitely like to continue with it. It worked well.
Okay.
Yeah, I was impressed with it. But it took a little while to get it rolling, but that's kind of, it's going to be like that with any activity.
Well, it sounds like 1 for 2, so the...
Not too bad, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Krista, thank you for all of that information for everybody, and it's something that we've been asking for years and years. And, your hard work and your administrators and people that you work under you, it's a great thing to have, and it's really good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kristen, just to clarify on the ASVIB, so
Yeah,
my understanding was we were going to be giving it to all students. We're not going to do that anymore.
my recommendation to Tom, when I spoke with him, was to not continue it for
Okay.
next year, to give it to the students that are interested in
Yeah.
it, but to not take the whole, and they haven't proved that we can even give it to a large population like that, so.
Okay. And so, sorry, for the students that are interested in the military that wanted to do it as almost practice and take their best score, that's still happening.
Absolutely.
And that happens on a running basis. Whenever you have somebody interested, they can go down and take the test.
Right, that's correct. And then if someone, so before someone wants to work with a recruiter, they want to build their score up. And then we also have programs that they can get free tutoring in an area that they want to increase, and Debbie helps with that also.
Yeah, I mean, respectfully, it wasn't exactly, it was sold to us a certain way that we would have that information, you know, career exploration, and then from what I had gathered talking to Chris O'Leary, the way the guy explained it, wasn't what they explained it.
And is it safe to assume we gave them brutal not honest,
Yeah.
open feedback on that?
Yeah.
Well, they did say that the military technology is probably the last to change, which kind of scared me a little bit.
I know, they kind of told us before it even went, so, and I do think it's for a certain population, and when you're trying to do it with large numbers and really sit down. He wasn't necessarily meant to present to a large group, but I don't think if anyone were up there, it would be really appropriate.
Yeah, because that wasn't how it was sold at all, right? I mean, it was more.
No, it was career exploration, it was really, I had a
Yeah.
website, I had a video.
They gave this whole speech about how it was, they sat down with state ed and aligned everything to
Like
their.
courses and all that
curriculum.
stuff,
That
yeah.
could explain the problem, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got
Exactly.
nervous, I'm like, Tom.
Therein lies the problem, exactly.
Mr. Boyd, looks like he.
Well, you had the question, but I don't know what the answer is. Did we give them a no, you know what, unsugar-coated critique saying this is not worth the time of day?
Yeah, I did that to Mr. Van Duzen, and then, was it you or both of us? I can't remember. Did we call together? I think we did.
Yeah, and then I also talked to the person who's in our college and career readiness committee, who's the actual.
That's one thing I can't think of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chris,
Denman.
yep, Chris Denman.
Yeah.
And I gave him very, very, very honest feedback. His son and my son played on the youth hockey together, so I felt I could be very honest with him. And he took all the notes that I had said. He was shocked at the feedback because he was kind of sold that it was going to be different too.
So the fact that it's a 20-year-old poster, a 20-year-old presentation provided no value whatsoever except for those maybe going in the military, he walked away fully understanding that.
He did.
Okay, perfect.
We were
Outstanding.
Thank you.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Hopefully you go catch the end of the game. All right, moving into other reports, we'll do unfinished business. First one is a draft letter for city BOCES. I'll read this quick to you, and if no one has any feedback, then we talked about this in the last meeting, so. Mr. Todd, on behalf of the Board of Education of the Central Square School District, I'm writing to offer some insight into our recent vote not to approve the proposed 1920 administrative budget for city. I want to start by pointing out that we are very supportive of the opportunities offered to our students through city. As a district, we are focused on ensuring that every student follows the path that is aligned to their interests and goals, and we have invested significant time and resources over the past years to expand beyond focusing only on a college pathway. Here are a few items that we considered as areas for discussing in the coming year. Number one, communication. We feel as though there is an opportunity to improve communication on the entire budget process. We do not lay this solely at the feet of city, as we as a board are a part of improving that as well. We'd like to see multiple opportunities during the budget development process for updates and input. Two, sustainability. There is serious concern from our board that the rate of increase and impact to districts is simply not sustainable. With the enormous impact of legacy and retiree health costs, we believe that there needs to be a significant move to reduce those costs going forward. Three, follow-up. There were concerns expressed from our board at the presentation earlier in the year about refunds back to component districts year after year when the overage could offset increases. We did not feel it was adequately addressed and points again to a need for better communication. We recognize and affirm the important role the city plays in assisting us in carrying out our mission and are hopeful that with some explanation, this will lead to an even stronger partnership in the coming years. We look forward to any feedback or questions you may have. Look forward to working together to deliver the highest quality educational opportunities we can at the lowest possible cost regardless. Everyone good with that?
Can we have all of the members, the board members copied on that?
Yeah, sorry, I should point out, everyone here will be copied on it, the city board is copied on it, Tom, obviously, and then the incoming, Vanessa Haskins copied in as an incoming member.
Okay.
Well read.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so that'll go out in the mail tomorrow. And the second unfinished business, which is, kind of stays on there, is data discussion. But Tom, do we have any, ETA makes it sound like we're looking for a deadline, but the reality is part of next year's goals is likely going to be, we had said in our goals for this year that we wanted to determine like 3 and 5 year goals for different data points within that dashboard. So not putting you on the spot here, but can you just get from them kind of a rough ETA so that we can set our timeline for that? Does that make sense? That would be great. And with that, Mrs. Wood, anything to bring up?
No, I did neglect at the last meeting to bring up about our first annual Health and Wellness Fair that was held on April 10th. We had a huge crowd of presenters that were here, the tables that they had. And in the beginning, I thought, oh boy, this doesn't look like we're going to get a good crowd, but it was a decent crowd. And I talked to some of the presenters that were around, and they said, no, we're happy with the crowd that's here, and then next year we'll just elaborate more on it. But it was a really good turnout, and I think it was successful for the first one.
I agree. I wasn't able to be there too long, but yeah, everyone I've talked to since then really got a lot out of it, a lot of information.
Yeah,
So.
it looks good.
Excellent. All right, we'll open it up to the board. Any topics or points to bring up? Mr. Loy, it looks like he's first.
Yeah, recently, Mr. Calbuco and I went to the Skills, USA Skills over at the fairgrounds, and I gotta tell you, amazingly impressive at some of those kids and what they're doing. We saw the entire thing, if I'm not mistaken. We walked around the entire thing, and every one of them was just, you look at it and you go, there's a career path right there that these guys are, and girls, men and women are getting fully prepared to capitalize on. And I think they did a great job. And one of the ones that stands out to me the most was the welding one. The thing that Lincoln put on and how they did that was just amazing. So.
Yeah, there was a total of 104 categories of competition, from heavy machinery, welding, carpentry, cosmetology, you name it, first aid. They were competing. It was awesome.
Do either of you, having attended it, is this something that we could in the future look to bring younger students to get them interested? Because it sounds like it's what we talk about, which is when you see a hands-on versus reading about welding, you know, is it that type of setup that would be good, or?
Yeah, I think given the opportunity and maybe, having to work through the details of transportation, the timing and all that other stuff, I think that would be a great idea. And I think you'd have to get them, a little earlier in the cycle. I don't know what grades would be appropriate, but certainly if there's something through our guidance, our counselor system that has indicated these kids are interested in this, then that would be obviously the first step.
Yeah, I'd like to do it early, maybe like 6th, 7th grade, because the kids need to understand, especially some of the ones that want the more hands-on, that they cannot be failing when they get up here for 9th and 10th grade, because they can't go to BOCES if they're failing, because then there's not time to be able to get those credits to be able to do it if you're at BOCES. So it definitely is something we want to get to them early to say, this is a pathway, but in order to get there, you have to have passing grades and discipline and all the other stuff.
But based on what we were hearing in the program, the Zello program, they're starting that in the elementaries, right?
Yes.
So by the time they hit 6th or 7th grade, there should be at least some kind of suggestion as to what pathway these students are kind of leaning towards, shouldn't there?
That is correct. 6th grade is where they start.
Any other topics or discussion points?
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up about the New York State test. So those don't come back till like September or something, correct?
No,
September or?
no, we're going to be getting them, they told us we're getting them this year. Aaron, go ahead.
Yep, the students who took the 3rd and 6th grade tests for ELA, we took computer-based for ELA, those we should have the results back, they're saying by July. The paper-based, which we're taking for ELA, was 4th, 5th, 7th, and 8th, they took paper-based. We usually get those back August-ish. but before the school year starts, and then math, everybody took paper-based because we were afraid of the kind of issue with the computer, so, again, those will be back in around August.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting at here is, I'm just curious, what kind of decisions, because the last couple of years I've been on here, I haven't seen any discussion about it, but what do we do with that information? Do we make any decisions based on that? Do we move kids into AIS services? Just, if you couldn't
Yep,
clarify.
so it used to actually be a requirement that if you had a 1 or a 2, you were mandated to be in AIS, but they changed that about 3 years ago. So it's just one more indicator for us to be able to see, you know, if we have students that are getting 1s and 2s in ELA, then that, and there are other things that pop up to show that the student does struggle, then yes, that student will definitely need AIS. So it is an indicator, but it's also, teachers are getting much more, you know, back regarding the exams. It's about 85%, 75% they get back. Part of the reason that out of the 25%, some of those are, Aaron, what do they call that when they're putting sample questions out that are higher, much higher?
Field test.
Yeah, field testing. So what 75% of teachers are able to get back and then look at this and go, wow, you know, 85% of my students all got that wrong. Is it a learning issue or is it a teaching issue? And before it was the Common Core and I taught social studies for 10 years, I would give the 8th grade assessment, I would get that feedback back, and it was a real kind of gut check for me as a teacher to say, wow, 90% of my kids were struggling on this, this, and this. That helped me in planning my lessons for next year to be able to do this.
So I've heard mixed results with that. So you said 75% get it back?
We get, no, 75% of the questions come back.
Okay, only 75%. So I've been told in the past, just as a passing conversation, that teachers don't always get that information. Why would that be?
I don't know.
It's right online. The teachers can all go into Engage New York and and a lot of teachers use some of those old passages or questions as center activities or writing prompts or things like that, so.
Okay, so every teacher is capable of getting their students.
You could go on right now and look at
Okay.
past tests for the last.
Say Engage New York is a totally open.
But he's saying their student scores,
Yes, they get their student scores.
but not on Engage New York, right? They get it a different way,
No,
right?
Really? I can go check
But
that.
Yeah.
But to clarify, that just for myself and to Phil's point, so teacher A has 25 students, they'll get the tests back, seeing which of the 75% of the questions that were released, which students got each of those questions right and wrong.
There are reports that they can go in and get, it's called BARS, it's in
Okay.
City Rec type
Is-
stuff.
But that's not accessible on Engage. Would they get
No, the
like,
principals would have to.
so they would give them like a login or something to get into that?
Only the principals have it.
So that's what I think I'm referring to, whatever that thing that the principals get. Well, I don't know what that is, but I've heard teachers say, well, we don't have access to that, only principals do.
That's
Can I-
Go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, if you don't mind, I'll ask a question that
Yeah.
I don't know if this is what you're asking, but it prompts me to ask that. So is it not an expectation that every teacher will review the specific student's results?
That is my expectation. Yeah, Aaron, Connie, so what he's saying, is it the expectation that teachers will be able to review those results? In the history here at Central Square, the elementary teachers, when they get that,
I always gave it to my teachers so they knew how their kids did.
right, so let's definitely take this, let's have a conversation with the building principals. And if some aren't, that would be shocking to me. So I want to be able to give feedback back to the board and say, yes,
One
they
of
are.
the things that the board just asked was about what is the data used for and how does it influence AIS. On the website, if you go under curriculum and instruction, you can see what.
Microphone. But when Tim watches this meeting back, he'll want your audio.
Because he won't remember what you said.
I know that feeling. So if you go onto the district website and you go under curriculum instruction, you can actually pull up what is the different AIS criteria. And it's always 2 to 3 or 4 different pieces of data used to make that determination, Phil, just so that you know, nobody's getting AIS based on a New York State assessment anymore.
Okay.
That's one data point is what we're saying.
It's
That's
one-
one data point of
At
several.
least 3, but in some cases 4 or 5.
Okay. And
Just, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Phil.
the other thing, like, you just brought my attention up to just totally, I've been thinking about this for a very long time, you just brought it up. The 1, 2, 3, 4 thing, 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4. Like, where does that come from? Is that a central square thing?
No,
Oh, you're talking about like proficient?
no, that's state, so that's
Talking about
not
the
us.
testing score?
That's, yeah, so a 0, actually, I don't even think they do 0, 0, no. It's a
1 is a very minimal understanding of the content. 2 is still considered not passing. 3 would be considered that the student has a solid grasp of it. And 4 is it's like an A. Yeah. That's not a central square thing.
Yeah. So,
Does it mirror the 1, 2, 3, 4s on our report cards?
Well, that is standards based, but no.
Because what is it on our report cards? A 4 is mastery, right, of state
Mastering the
expense.
the state standards.
Right, and so didn't you just say that they've got it, it's like getting an A, so that, and then 3 is
It's pretty good.
they've met it, meeting New York State, right? And 2 is developing, and 1 is, I don't remember what 1 is.
Working towards.
Yeah, so is that comparable to what the testing scores are?
I'd have to lie. In a way, Arena, jump in?
Okay, so for New York State testing, sits out by itself. A 3 is grade level. That means you're on grade level. A 4 exceeds grade level. So it really exceeds those standards set for that grade level, as opposed to our standards-based scoring, where a 4 is like an A, in our report card situation.
So a 4 on a state test is better than a 4 on our, okay.
And just to confirm what you said, the computer-based scores don't come back much quicker than the paper-based? Did I hear that correctly or no?
They should be back, this is our first year with it, so it's hard for me to say we definitely will have them.
Okay,
But we should have them by the end of June, early July,
and the paper by July,
mid-August,
mid-August, okay.
typically, yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes earlier, sometimes later.
The final, I forget the order, but the final one, which maybe was math, it seems like the computer-based actually went well on that one?
Yep. Chris Todd said he was actually in a meeting with the commissioner at the time, and her phone kept going off. There would be 15,000 students on it. It was working, no crash. And then after like the first hour, it dropped off down because the majority of the kids had finished it. There were no issues.
And computer-based, it started out, so the middle school teachers in 6th grade, because Fiorina and I were there, said it was so smooth. Because they were one of, middle school start earlier. And the kids were right on, going through, loving it, and then all of a sudden, you could tell when everybody else started to get on, and it became a big, but the computers, the Chromebooks, like, they definitely did what they told us they were gonna do. They saved all the kids' work, so we just we went there the next day and pulled it up and submitted everything, and it worked very well. And then for elementary, we didn't have any problems, because we started, after, 3rd grade started after, because we couldn't even start, we couldn't even get on it. But it went very, very smooth, so. Yeah, it's definitely something I want to look at again, depending on times that they're gonna be super meeting with the commissioner to see what route we go, because I think it's something that will definitely be beneficial.
All right, any other topics? Anyone?
Just one more thing. I've been on my phone probably a little bit because my daughter's trying to get me information about an event that she's at. As you know, or some of you know, she goes to SU, she's at Whitman, which is a management school. She's on a team that went out to Kansas City for what's called an Actus National Exposition. It's a national exposition. And in some of the stuff that she's been sending me, she wanted me to make sure that I let you guys know that goes right back at something that keeps showing up on the screen back here. DECA. She was part of DECA. She rolls right into this whole thing. So I want to give kudos back to the DECA program and our school's support and activity within that program. So.
All right, a couple quick things. Reminders to the board. You have this busy season for us. So board self-appraisals, you can get those back and submitted by May 15th. And we will actually conduct our self-appraisal on the first meeting in June. the superintendent evaluation due back May 20th, and that we conduct at the second meeting in June. Second thing is, if by next Monday, anyone, if you're interested in going to the Central New York School Board Association annual meeting / dinner at the Lodge at Welch Allen, we need those RSVPs by next Monday. Into Pearl is fine. Tim and others would be very excited to know that you now get a 50% discount if you would like to, even if you've already taken it, which all of you have because you're experienced board members, but the fiscal and governance oversight training that's mandatory, you can now retake it and get 50% off. So,
Wow.
I know.
I think we all want to really sign up for that one.
Can we do that in July, on 2 Saturdays in a row?
You can.
Wait.
50% off.
Can we get somebody from the state government to come teach that one? Because I think they need it more than us.
Listen, it's great training. And that's all I have. So, yep, moving to the superintendent's report.
Paige, I was going to mention unified basketball update, but since you're on the team, do you want to give a quick little update?
Yeah, we just had a game today and we won, so that makes us undefeated so far. Yeah, the kids loved it. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend seeing them because they're just amazing to watch. And I just love playing with all the kids. They just make me happy. They're so funny.
It's exactly what Nick Ransom said when he stopped me in the hallway a couple days ago. So I just want to touch upon that. Our mission is to empower all students to excel as citizens in the changing world, whether they have a disability or not. I think it's awesome that they're out there playing together, but the really cool part is when you look into the audience and you see parents of students with special needs, and just the look of pride that they have on their faces as well is awesome. So, Paige, that's awesome you're on that team. Great job. The high school mock trial team competed at regionals in Binghamton and were semifinalists. The team was honored Friday, May 3rd, 2019 by the Oswego County Bar Association for the team's amazing season. Central Square has been nominated for 2 awards at this year's Syracuse High School Music Theater Awards. Kylie Galerno, Paul B. Moore Jr. has been nominated in the Outstanding Performance by a Supporting Actress category for her performance in Elsa Schrader. It's amazing. When I came here to Central Square, and she was a freshman at one of the plays, I thought she was a senior, and she just continues to just be amazing. Also, Central Square has been nominated for Outstanding Performance by a student orchestral. Orchestral, but you think orchestral something. Congratulations to Kylie, Mr. Haldeman, our pit players, and all the rest of the cast, crew, and the directors that were involved in this year's production. The awards ceremony will be held on June 2nd at 6 p.m. at the Landmark Theater in Syracuse. Again, Mr. Lallier touched upon Skills USA, so I don't have to do that. It was fantastic. W.E.B. Du Bois program at Princeton. Ari Fenton, Central Square Middle School 7th grade student, applied for and was accepted to the W.E.B. Du Bois Junior Achievers Summer Program at Princeton University in Princeton, New Jersey. This residential summer academy focuses on leadership for high-achieving middle and high school students with goals of fostering and increasing academic rigor, collaborative learning, and problem solving. This is one of those examples like Mr. Lallier touched upon with DECA, and that is what we have many conversations with Connie and with Kristen Enright about there are things that kind of happen in pockets, and what can we do systemically to expose students to all of these great opportunities, because there are some phenomenal opportunities here at Central Square. National History Day competition, working with Miss Kim Wright, 8th grade social studies teacher at Central Square Middle School. The following students competed in the National History Day competition held on March 9 at OCM BOCES in Liverpool. Jamie Farley, AJ Beardsley, Aiden Nazmos, Savannah Kokopati, Peyton Taylor, Faith Lederer, and Kylie McAllister. Peyton Tyler, Faith Lederer, Kylie McAllister, all qualified to go on to the statewide competition in Copelskill and be representing Central Square Middle School April 29. This was the first year Central Square Middle School pursued this competition, and congratulations are in order for all the students' efforts and those of the teachers' effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Colbufo. All right, we can move into items for action and discussion. So can I get a motion for item F1, approval of the second reading of proposed district policies?
Just gotta help me out.
Mrs. Nickerson
I'll second.
made the motion, Mr. Buddy with the second. Any discussion? So assuming they're approved, these then become our new policies. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. I'll make a motion for item F2, approval of the resolution to appoint the district clerk to cast and canvass affidavit ballots. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Who's that, Mr. Patch? Man, it's like, I'm looking down.
Like left side.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Thank you. Can I get a motion for item F3, approval of the resolution for the destruction of ballots from the May 22nd, 2018.
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Bedworth, second by
I'll second.
Mr. Patch. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. And can I get a motion for item F4, approval of sponsorship of continuing education agreement? Mrs. Nickerson, second by
I'll second.
Mr. Patch. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, what is this? This is like the adult education in our building? Is that what this is?
No, in our community.
Just sponsoring it? I mean,
Well,
no
it's,
cost to it, right?
How does, no, there's no cost to it.
There, because the 9 district, component districts are the BOCES, we have to authorize it, but it's done through federal grants.
Okay.
any other discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Make a motion for item G in its entirety. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Second. I heard two voices, but I'm going to give it to Mrs. Wood because I think she was first. Mrs. Wood with the second. Any discussion on G? All those in favor? Thank you, and particularly thank you to Ms. Gershman for great letters backing up what we just proved, the disposal of surplus property.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. And can I get a motion for item H in its entirety?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Mr. Patch, second by Mrs. Wood. Any discussion on H? All those in favor? It's unanimous. There is no executive session tonight.
I'll go for the motion aye.
So before we close, though, just a reminder, so it's a packed month. We have a meeting next Monday, and then Meet Candidate Night follows it. Next Monday is 6 p.m., special time, because meet the candidate. And then we have a meeting on the 20th, and then a reminder that we will need a meeting, just 5 of us. It's not a meeting where there's any other action, but to certify the results. And so I guess you'll get a note night of the election, right? Yeah, so if there's affidavit ballots, determines when the meeting has to be or doesn't, so I'll let everyone know on that. And then Pearl, that is one where we get an exemption from the posting clause, right? Because we don't, yeah, okay.
If we have affidavit ballots, then it can't be certified until after we first cast the canvas.
Okay. All right, so with that being said, can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I just want to let you know, I will not be able to make it on the 20th. I will be airborne.
20th, okay. Mr. Bedworth, do you have that, Pearl? Thank you. Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Patch, can I get a second? Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Go enjoy the weather.